It's tough keeping up with you guys. You sit there, you watch this video, you see how things transpire, kind of go along with things. I'm the guy who's here busting my tail so I can get ready for the next video. It's a real pain. But I have to stay up to date on things, have to get you guys moving, have to understand that you guys need to go from one step to the next step to the next step. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So when I do all this stuff, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, he's always going to do the harder of the two. It's like with the dovetail as opposed to the miter. The top that I'm making for my box, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to make it, pretty complicated. But it could be as simple as I glue two pieces of wood together, or I just happen to have one piece of wood together. But it's tough to try to stay up to date, or I should say ahead of the game when I'm presenting this stuff to you. Remember last time we were all together, we put together my dovetails and we saw that that worked out pretty well. The other thing that I did in the interim was I sanded this with 81-22-20. I polyurethaned it, I waxed it, hit it with maybe a little bit of 400 and 600. So these insides are all set. The other thing that I have to keep in mind, which I was doing when you guys were with me last, was to cut that bottom out. The bottom had to be a certain size, couldn't be too big or else the box or my drawer is what it kind of comes out to be, wouldn't fit together. So I cut it to the exact size that it had to be. After I did that, when you guys left, I polyurethaned, I sanded and polyurethaned. A couple of things to keep in mind about this plywood. Veneer plywood is exactly that. It's veneer. It's just a shell. It's just a little coating over regular conventional plywood. This is actually, this piece of oak here and this piece of oak here, actually a 64th of an inch. So when you think about it, together, they come out to be about a 32nd of an inch, but it's very, very easy to sand through that veneer. So a lot of people attack this as if they were gonna attack solid material. They sand it up with 80 grit, 120 grit, 220 grit. I've seen people sand through this with a piece of 80 grit and get into the underlying layers of the plywood, which is a disaster because you can't use the piece anymore. Veneer plywood will come to us already pre-sanded with about 120 grit. I mean, if you want to touch it with some 120 grit to take off some pencil marks, you can. But what you really need to do is just sand it with 220 if you want to sand it with a little 400, 600, and then put your finish on it. There's not a whole lot of sanding you have to do with veneer plywood. It's definitely smooth to the touch. What I did was I polyurethaned this, 3 coats on both sides. I also just waxed it. So when I put the whole box together, I don't have to worry about anything that's on the inside. I don't have to sand the inside. Remember, the width of my box is only going to be this big. What can I fit in there? Like a thumb. But I can't sand or do anything to the inside of this box. So that's why I had to pre-finish everything. So once the whole thing goes together, the only thing I have to worry about is the outside. I said to you in the last episode, those dovetails are so strong, you don't even have to glue them. But I guess as a matter of course and a matter of habit, I'm going to show you how to put a little glue and put the whole thing together. With a glue, a dovetail, the thing will never ever come apart. If you're going to glue dovetails together, at least in my class, what I'm going to ask you to do is to get a bottle of the polyvinyl acetate glue. That's what we use. I'm going to ask you to get a screw. I'm going to ask you to get the lousiest piece of sandpaper you can find. I don't care what grit it is. All we want to do is take a piece of paper, put that glue on that paper, and then we're going to use that to go onto each one of those tails. So what I'm going to do is take the glue right now, squeeze out a little bit of glue. I don't even know that I need that much. Of course, I want to put my glasses on so I don't miss this. Remember we talked about dovetails being made up of tails and pins. Pins are the long members, the tails are the grooves that are cut in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my screw, and inside each one of these tails, I'm going to put a drop of glue in there. I'll do it on this side, I'll do it on this side. I don't have to do anything to the pins. When I do this, I'm simply going to roll the head of the screw on the glue, so the glue's holding on. I lay the glue right on top of it, wipe it right inside the tail. So roll it, place it in here, a little drop, and a little drop. If you miss any of one of these dovetails, and the dovetails fit so snugly, if you miss one, I don't think it's a big deal because that sucker isn't coming apart anyway. Roll the head, put it on there. The reason why you're doing this is if I ask you to put glue on a dovetail, what I see people do is take a gallon bottle of glue and try to put one drop in that little area. It's always a disaster. Same thing, roll the head, pick up the glue, just wipe it in, roll the head, pick up the glue, wipe it in. Little bit here, little bit here. And like horseshoes, hand grenades, and washing your hands, neatness always counts. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I do this. So here's my glue in each one of my tails. I'm all set now. I could take the glue, lay that off to the side. And now I can put the whole thing together. Remember I put those distinguishing characteristic marks, A to A, Q to Q, R to R, F to F. So I want to look at this. Here you go. Looks like a C to me. I guess I should keep my glasses on. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Here's my C here, so I'm going C to C. Where's C? C goes here, C goes here. Uh-oh, 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 O, O. Let's go O to O. We'll go O to O, O to O, O to O. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Something doesn't fit. Something doesn't work out. Where's my F? F, let's try it that way. F to F, we'll take this one because this one works. What I'm gonna do is flip this around and real quickly just tap it down. And as I said to you guys, you would always want to make sure that if these fit really tight, you could take a backer block and put a backer block right on there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this other side, the A to A side. Oh, no. No. We've done that several times. Yes, yes, yes. So here's the C. Where's the C? C to C. C to C. I hope that's C to C. Yep. And I'll tap it. And now I'll go my A to my A, and I'll tap it down. I'll do it the same exact way. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What did I forget? Oh, I forgot to put in my bottom. How do you like that? Oh, that's not so good. Oh, boy. Jeepers. I'll always make the biggest mistake that I possibly can. I always keep that in mind. Does this line up? A. Here's my good side. Nope, that's my bad side. Here's my good side. I'm going to take this bad boy. I'm going to slide this right on in. And hopefully it'll fit in. And it does. By some magic, it goes into that groove a little bit, so that lines up well. Up, up, up. Up, up. Yep, yep. Yep, yep. I'll lay my side on top, and I'll tap it as well. So a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. So now I have a box. How do you like that? The thing that I want to make sure of is that these dovetails fit as flat down as they can fit. That looks pretty good to me. Good, good. This one sticks out a little bit. I'll tap that one down. And I'm in pretty good shape right there. So there's my box. I am pretty much done with this. I do want to check to see if this thing is square. There's two ways that I could check to see if it's square. I could either use a tri-square, or I could take measurements from corner to corner. From corner to corner. I can't get a tri-square in this small area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure and use my geometric formula of diagonals should equal the same. If this thing is square, I should be able to take a measurement from this corner and measure it over to here, and it should work out. So let me get, well, you know, I like my other standard tape better. I'll take this, lay this exactly on the corner. What I'm going to do, I better put my other pair of glasses on and look in the light, the only bit of light that we have. If I take a measurement from here to here, I get a mark of about 14¼ to me. That looks like about 14¼ from this corner to this corner. I have to take the same measurement from the same exact point. So if I take this and I put this at 14, right on this corner, it looks like it's a little bit greater than 14, just a hair, maybe a 32nd of an inch. Sometimes if I just squeeze this in, I've also done this where I just kind of tapped it, and I should come pretty close to 14. It's a little bit on the heavy side of 14¼ Let's see if this is a little on the heavy side of 14¼ and it is. So right now, by taking a measurement corner to corner, these look like they're exactly the same. So I'm satisfied that this is square. Just want to tap this dovetail in. It feels a little bit like it's sticking up. These all fit good. I'm really satisfied with that. The next thing that I want to do is I could actually cut out the notch for the hinges for my top, but I'm going to glue my top together. Before I do that though, I want to show you the best part about using a dovetailed box. And that is, I'm going to clean up my dovetails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a corner. I'm going to take this F corner here. This surface hasn't been sanded, but what I want to show you is how cool this looks when I sand the end grain of the dovetail. I'm going to use a piece of 80 grit. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to sand the living daylights out of this. Before I glued this top up, what I did do was I broke this top corner and this corner. When I sand this with 80 grit, it's going to show you a great contrast between end grain and surface grain. Surface grain, you should know, is going to be lighter than end grain for sure, because end grain is the poorest parts of that. But this is the reason why I make dovetails, because they just look so absolutely cool. The other thing that's great is that when you polyurethane, the polyurethane is going to make that end grain even stand out as being darker. So for a hardwood like this oak, if you said to me, how about if you just stain this? I could stain it, but the great part is the contrasting end grain to the surface grain, because this is going to be dark. This will be just a little bit darker, but that end grain is really going to pop. So here's my 80. And of course, yes, I'm falling in love with 80. And the other part about this that's really cool, I'm going to close my eyes and touch these dovetails. If I feel any difference in the two surfaces, and I do it just a little bit up here, I'm going to sand that. This surface right here feels great. So I'm just going to sand these dovetails a little bit more. The one thing that I don't do is I don't want to round over my corner. I want to keep it as flat as I can. It's touchable if I just break it, but I don't want to sand it where I round it over, because I want it to look like it's supposed to look square. Let me close my eyes and touch. Oh man, that feels great. So that's 80 grit. 120, and I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. Remember, I busted my tail with the 80. With 120, not nearly as much. And I'm breaking this edge just a little bit. But man, does that look cool. 220 grit. And again, the best part about sanding is that I do it less and less with each progressive grit. So there's 220. If you wanted to, you can stop at 220. If you're a wood shop teacher and everybody's watching you with a fine-tooth comb, maybe it's time to get some 400. I think that they're all, yep. Here it is. Here it is. The 400 and 600 really just polish that up. And my 600 grit, again, less and less. And I just want to touch this to see how it feels. Whoa, jeez. Whoa. Whoa, jeez. I don't have my compressor handy. But if you look, how great does that look? I mean, there's a shine to it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the other side when I'm waiting for my top to finish drying, because I'm gonna glue up my top. Again, the top of this project to me was the cornerstone. I made the box around those two pieces of curly oak that I got. I think I might have said to you spouted, that was wrong. Those are two pieces of curly oak that I really like the grain of it, and I think it's gonna be wild. I'm gonna see if I can combine it with a little bit of Purple Heart, but I'll do this other side later when you guys are taking your siesta. I'm gonna go over to my table saw, grab my pieces of oak, and I'm gonna meet you at that glue table. So without further ado, let me give this a shot. I like to go over this stuff and review it simply because of the fact that so many people will do this one time. You won't do it again for 4 or 5 weeks. Sometimes people won't do it for a month, and then they'll forget how to glue things up. It's one of those things, if you do it one time, you should be able to do it 5 times, 6 times, and it never changes. It's always going to be the same basics. All righty. Again, worst possible case scenario. He comes over to the glue table. I'm hoping that these clamps work, but if they don't, I have these little wedges that'll tighten up the clutches, because those clamps are almost as old as long as I've been teaching here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 2 pieces, which I surfaced down before you guys were in the picture here. What I did was I lined this up the way I thought it looked the best. I did this in a million different directions. The thing that was consistent about this is this black area here and this black area here, I think look pretty cool. I don't know, it just kind of is a swirling pattern, almost looks like clouds. So I'm gonna glue it up this way, and we'll see if you guys remember exactly how you wanna do this. Number 1, clamps never go right next to each other. The biggest mistake that people make is they put it right next to each other and they have about 7 or 8 inches on either side. What you want to do is, I want to space these clamps out. So I probably have on each side maybe about 3/4 of an inch. And that's important because I want to put a deep throw clamp here and a deep throw clamp here to make sure those pieces don't move. So what I'm going to do is I'll open this area up. I'm going to take a look here. Grab myself a couple of the small deep throw clamps. These are spaced perfectly. If I space them any closer, I'm not going to get complete coverage. Someone said to me, how many clamps should I use on a project? Here is your quiz and your answer. What is the proper number of clamps if I'm gluing up a top like this? How many bar clamps should I use to hold that thing together? The correct answer is as many as you need. There are some people who can glue together magically, mystically, perfectly 2 boards with 1 clamp. I've seen it happen. Some people need 2, some people need 3, some people need 4. There's never a rule with it's got to be this number. It's as many as it takes for you to successfully complete the job. You look at this. Here's all these racks and all these clamps, racks and clamps on the other side. It's never an issue unless we have a lot of people in a lot of classes gluing together all at the same time. So when I do this, if you don't have enough clamps, or you say to me, hey, look, I can't find enough clamps, then maybe you wait till the next day. But that might be one day that you might have to wait. But what you're going to do is as many clamps as it takes to as it takes to successfully clamp that project, that's how many you need for your project. So what I'm going to do is take the board. If they're going to go exactly this way, I'm going to lift up the edge, take my glue, and I'm not going to squeeze it. I'm just kind of rolling it on the back side. I cover that edge with glue. I'm going to take my index finger, spread it out. What I usually do is put on too much, and then I tell you that if you have too much, take it and wipe it into your clothes. No, 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 you don't want to do that. If I have too much glue on this side, all I have to do is take it and put it on this side, and some of it will absorb in. But you don't want to wipe this off, and the last thing you want to do is put it in your clothes. Put it in your clothes, then what happens is that stuff, when you wash your clothes the next day, it's going to turn white. So I take my board, lay it flat down, put my other board right up against there, even them out as best as I possibly can. And this is where we say glue in this case is more of a lubricant than it is an adhesive. If I took the clamps, clamped it together, most likely the boards would either go side to side or up and down. To prevent that from happening, I'm going to take my deep throat clamp, lay it right on the joint. I'm just going to snug this one down. And again, I'm not tightening this down crazy. All I'm going to do is snug it. I'll take my other clamp on this side. I'll do it the same exact way, just snug, not super tight. Now I'm going to bring the clutches down. And if you remember this from the last time, I'm going to start to tighten this bar clamp. If I tighten the bar clamp and the clutch slips, what I need to do is take one of these wedges and put it inside the bar clamp. But as I start to tighten it, I feel resistance. I think that this is actually going to work out. Let's tighten this side. This side feels, yep, I can tell it's slipping, and you can hear it slipping. So on this side, I'm going to take one of those wedges, place this in here, and what I can do, hold on, hold that thought. I'm going to take my little hammer that I've fallen in love with, tap that wedge down. I'll put a little bit of pressure and now I feel resistance, which is great. So I feel resistance on this side. Let me put a little bit more pressure on this side. Resistance still. A little bit more here, a little bit more here, a little bit more here, a little bit more here. If I wanted to, I can take a third bar clamp and put it in the middle, but I have a nice bead there that actually feels pretty good. And it feels pretty, you know what I'm going to do on this? I know what I'm going to do on this. It's a little bit off in terms of this side being a little higher than here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these monster deep throat clamps. I'll lay this right on the joint. And what I'm going to do is use this to squeeze the middle together. Because right now, this is nice and even. This is nice and even. At the bars, it's nice and even. This is a little bit off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put pressure on the middle of that to make sure that's much better. It's going to be nice and even. That's perfect. Tighten this one down a little bit more, this one down a little bit more. So now I'm all set, right? No. Very last thing when we're clamping up boards is to make sure that it's flat on the bar clamp. So if I look in there, is that board making contact with the bar clamp? Cameraman shakes her head. And I'll take a look. Nope, there is a gap there. There's a gap of maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so. So what I'm going to do is look around. I don't want to get somebody's wood that they're going to use. I want to get a piece of scrap wood. Come on, scrap wood. Come on, scrap wood. And what I'm going to do is take my little hammer. I'm just going to tap this down. If I tap it down and check it now, oh, there's a big difference. That is flat there. Whatever is on this side usually is on this side. going to tap this one. I could feel that one go down as well. And this is the funny part where I put my head and I hit it on those clamps that are already on the table. This looks pretty good as well. Now, what I usually do at this point, this is tight. I'll take this deep throw clamp off, this deep throw clamp off. See, normally I would take this one off, but I want to make sure that that stays nice and flat, even in the middle. So I'm going to leave this one on. But we don't need these anymore. I'll put these aside. And then what I'll do is think about what I'm going to do for the top. I want to do something really unusual for this top. Maybe some kind of Purple Heart inlay I think would be kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is let this dry. I'll scrape this up, clean it up. I'll square it up the next time we're together. And then we'll figure out a way that we're going to make this thing look pretty outstanding. The other thing that I have to do is I have to sand that other side. Once I sand the other side, then I could actually put a finish on my entire box. Maybe the next time we work on this top, and maybe the next time we gain in or mortise in the hinges to do a really sharp job to attach this top to the rest of the body of the box. Hey, any questions? Don't be afraid to shoot me an email. Stay with it. This is going to come out really, really sharp. And I'll see you next time for some top work and for some hinge work. Have a good one.